My girlfriend told me she's only staying with me until someone better comes along. I mean, you're fine for now, David, but we both know I'm out of your league. I'm just killing time until someone with actual potential shows up. Maya's words hung in the air like poison gas as she applied mascara in our bathroom mirror, getting ready for another night out without me. She said it so casually, like she was discussing weekend plans, not destroying the foundation of our 18-month relationship. I stood frozen in the doorway, toothbrush in hand, watching the woman I loved explain how she was using me as a placeholder. She caught my reflection staring at her and rolled her eyes, not bothering to stop her makeup routine. Don't look so shocked. You had to know this wasn't permanent. I'm 26 and gorgeous. You're 31 and work in accounting. This was always going to be temporary. Maya capped her mascara and turned to face me, her expression a mixture of pity and irritation. At least I'm being honest about it. Most girls would just string you along until something better materialized. The cruelty of her honesty hit me like a physical blow. We lived in my apartment. She drove my car when hers was in the shop, and I'd been paying for her expensive dinners and weekend trips for months. I'd thought I was investing in our future together, building something real with someone I loved. Instead, I'd been funding her search for my replacement while she lived rent-free and commitment-free in my life. Maya brushed past me toward the bedroom, her perfume trailing behind her like evidence of betrayal. I'm meeting some friends at that new rooftop bar downtown. Don't wait up. She grabbed her purse and jacket, then paused at the bedroom door. Oh, and David? You might want to think about upgrading yourself if you want to keep women like me interested. Hit the gym, get some better clothes, maybe consider doing something more exciting than balancing spreadsheets for a living. I watched her leave, hearing the front door slam with finality that echoed through every corner of my suddenly empty apartment. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the weight of everything I'd been too blind or too desperate to see. Maya had just told me exactly what she thought of me, and the worst part was that some twisted part of my brain wondered if she was right. Sleep was impossible that night. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling while Maya's words played on repeat in my mind. Every memory from our relationship took on new meaning under the harsh light of her confession. The way she'd yawn during my stories about work, how she'd check her phone constantly when we were together, the eye rolls when I suggested staying in for a quiet evening. All signs I'd ignored because I was too grateful to have someone like her interested in someone like me. Maya stumbled in at 4:30 a.m., reeking of alcohol and someone else's cologne. She collapsed into bed without acknowledging me, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline to better options. I pretended to be asleep while she giggled at text messages, the sound like nails on a chalkboard in the darkness. When she finally passed out, I grabbed her phone from her loosened grip, my hands shaking as I unlocked it with her birthday. The dating apps were all there. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, even some exclusive one I'd never heard of called Raya. Her profile photos were recent, taken in my apartment with captions like, "Looking for something real with someone who has their life together." The messages were even worse. Conversations with lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, all promising dinner at restaurants I could never afford. She'd been actively shopping for my replacement while sleeping in my bed. One conversation thread made my blood run cold. A guy named Alexander, a surgeon at the university hospital, had been messaging her for weeks. Their conversation had progressed from flirting to explicit photos to planning a weekend getaway to his lake house. Maya had told him she was single, available, and excited to meet someone finally worthy of her time. The trip was scheduled for this coming weekend, which explained why she'd told me she was visiting her sister in Portland. I screenshotted everything before carefully placing the phone back in her hand. Evidence of her betrayal now lived on my device, proof that our entire relationship was a lie. Maya had been using me as a comfortable home base while conducting a full-scale search for someone who met her standards. I was her safety net, her financial support, her convenient placeholder, until a better option signed the contract. The next morning brought no relief from the nightmare my life had become. Maya woke up hungover and irritable, snapping at me for breathing too loudly while I made coffee. She complained that the apartment was too bright, the coffee too weak, and my presence too oppressive for her delicate state. When I asked about her plans to visit her sister in Portland that weekend, she didn't even blink before confirming her travel arrangements. The lies rolled off her tongue like she'd practiced them, smooth and believable, if you didn't know the truth. I called in sick to work and spent the day researching Maya's new love interest while she went to her yoga class and lunch with friends. Dr. Alexander Reeves, 34, cardiothoracic surgeon, divorced, no kids, member of the country club, drives a Tesla. His social media painted him as everything Maya thought she deserved. Successful, wealthy, sophisticated. Everything I wasn't. The man who was about to become her upgrade while she discarded me like yesterday's newspaper. But as I dug deeper into Alexander's background, disturbing details began to emerge. My college roommate Marcus worked in healthcare administration, and a few strategic questions revealed ugly truths about Maya's dream man. Alexander's medical license was currently under investigation by the State Medical Board for sexual misconduct with patients. 3 women had filed formal complaints, claiming he'd used his position of power to coerce them into sexual relationships during their treatment. The allegations were serious and credible. Lisa Hartman, 28, had been his patient during heart surgery recovery, when Alexander began making inappropriate comments about her body. When she tried to report him, he'd convinced hospital administration that she was emotionally unstable due to medication side effects. Jennifer Kyle, 32, had been undergoing cardiac rehabilitation when Alexander started requesting private sessions that had nothing to do with her medical treatment. Sarah Donovan, 25, had been his patient for 6 months when he began pressuring her for dates, claiming it would help with her recovery. Each woman's story followed the same pattern. Alexander would identify vulnerable patients, usually women going through medical crises who felt dependent on his expertise. He'd gradually blur professional boundaries, making personal comments, requesting unnecessary physical examinations, and eventually pressuring them for sexual contact. When patients resisted or complained, he'd use his professional reputation and connections to discredit them. The medical board investigation had been ongoing for 8 months, but Alexander's lawyer had successfully delayed hearings and suppressed media coverage. Hospital administration had quietly reassigned him to administrative duties while maintaining his employment, protecting their reputation over patient safety. The 3 women who'd come forward were fighting an uphill battle against one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the state. I printed out everything I could find: medical board filings, witness statements, court documents from the women's civil cases. The evidence painted a clear picture of a predator who used his medical degree and social status to exploit women in crisis. Maya wasn't walking into a fairy tale romance with a successful doctor. She was walking into a trap with a man who saw women as objects to be manipulated and used. For a moment, I considered letting her find out the hard way. She'd made it brutally clear that I meant nothing to her, that our entire relationship was just convenient utility while she searched for something better. Why should I protect someone who saw me as nothing more than a temporary solution to her housing and financial needs? Let her discover Alexander's true nature when she was alone with him at his isolated lake house. But I couldn't do it. Despite Maya's cruelty, despite her systematic betrayal, despite the way she'd weaponized my love for her own convenience, I couldn't let her walk into danger. Some stubborn part of me still loved the woman I'd thought she was, even knowing that woman had never really existed. I had to warn her, even though she'd probably dismiss my concerns as jealousy and manipulation. Maya returned from her day out glowing with excitement about her upcoming weekend. She'd gotten her nails done, bought new lingerie with my credit card, and spent 2 hours on the phone with Alexander planning their romantic getaway. Watching her prepare for what she thought was her fairy tale beginning while knowing the nightmare she was walking into felt like swallowing glass. I waited until she was relaxed, settled on the couch with a glass of wine, before approaching her with the printed documents. Maya, I need to show you something important about Alexander. There are things you need to know before you go away with him this weekend. She looked up from her phone with immediate suspicion, her expression shifting from contentment to irritation in seconds. What are you talking about? She saw the papers in my hand, and her eyes narrowed dangerously. Did you research him? Did you actually stalk some guy you've never met because you're jealous? I explained calmly about the medical board investigation, the allegations from multiple women, the pattern of predatory behavior. Maya listened with growing anger, her face flushing red as I detailed each accusation. When I finished, she was quiet for exactly 10 seconds before exploding. You went through my phone, violated my privacy, and now you're trying to sabotage my happiness with obvious lies. This is pathetic even for you, David. Alexander is a respected surgeon, not some predator you're making him out to be. She grabbed the documents and barely glanced at them before throwing them across the room. These could be fake, taken out of context, or just lies from women who couldn't handle being rejected by a successful man. You're so desperate to keep me here that you'll make up anything to stop me from leaving. Maya stood and began pacing, her voice rising with each word. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? How it makes me look to be dating someone so insecure that they'd invent stories about my other relationships? The complete dismissal of documented evidence left me speechless. Maya had decided Alexander was her ticket to a better life, and she wasn't going to let facts interfere with her fantasy. The same woman who'd researched my credit score before moving in, who'd demanded to see my bank statements and employment history, was willing to ignore serious criminal allegations about her potential new boyfriend because those allegations didn't fit her narrative. I tried a different approach, appealing to her sense of self-preservation. Even if you don't believe everything in these documents, wouldn't you want to at least ask him about the allegations? Just to verify the information before you're alone with him in an isolated location? Maya stopped pacing and turned to face me with an expression of cold fury that made my blood freeze. I'm not going to interrogate Alexander about lies his jealous ex-boyfriend made up. That's what this is, isn't it? You're the jealous ex who can't handle that I'm moving on to someone better. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than screaming. Let me make something very clear, David. I'm going this weekend. I'm going to have an amazing time with a man who actually deserves me. And when I get back, I expect you to have processed this rejection like an adult. Maya gathered the scattered documents and carried them to the kitchen, where she fed each page into the garbage disposal while maintaining eye contact with me. The sound of paper being shredded felt like my last chance to save her being destroyed, along with the evidence. There, she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Now there's no evidence of your pathetic attempt to manipulate me, but I'd been smart enough to keep copies. While Maya had been destroying the physical documents, digital versions remained safely stored on my laptop and phone. I'd also forwarded everything to my own email account and saved backup copies to cloud storage. Her dramatic gesture had accomplished nothing except demonstrating how completely she'd rejected reality in favor of her fantasy. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and barely concealed hostility. Maya moved through the apartment like I didn't exist, making plans for her weekend while treating me like furniture. She bought new clothes, made dinner reservations at expensive restaurants, and talked on the phone with Alexander while I sat in the same room being systematically ignored. The psychological torture of watching her prepare for what I knew was likely her destruction was almost unbearable. I made desperate attempts to reach out to anyone who might listen. Maya's sister Rebecca lived 3 states away and barely knew me, but I called her anyway. Rebecca, I know this sounds crazy, but Maya is about to go away with someone who's under investigation for sexual assault. I've tried to warn her, but she won't listen. Could you maybe call her and suggest she be careful? Rebecca's response was swift and brutal. David, Maya told me you've been getting obsessive and controlling lately. This sounds exactly like what she described. Leave my sister alone and get some help. Maya's few remaining friends were equally dismissive. Her best friend Chloe actually laughed when I tried to explain the situation. Let me guess, you're jealous that Maya found someone successful, and you're trying to sabotage her happiness. She warned me you might try something like this. Get over it, David. She deserves better than you. The consensus was unanimous. I was the problem, and Maya deserved her chance at happiness with Alexander. My attempts to contact Alexander directly were blocked before they could begin. His hospital voicemail system wouldn't put me through to his office, and his personal phone number was unlisted. I even considered showing up at the hospital, but security would have me removed before I could get near him. Maya had chosen her path, and everyone around us was enabling her march toward danger because they couldn't see past her surface-level desires to the predator waiting underneath. The Thursday before her weekend trip, Maya sat me down for what she called a final conversation about boundaries. She perched on the edge of the couch like she was afraid prolonged contact with me might be contagious, her expression a mixture of pity and disgust. I need you to understand that your behavior this week has been completely unacceptable. The stalking, the lies, the attempts to manipulate me through fear, it's made me realize how toxic this relationship has become. I started to protest, to explain once more that I was trying to protect her, but Maya held up her hand for silence. No, David, I'm talking now. You've had your chance to speak, and you chose to use that chance to try to destroy my relationship with Alexander. That tells me everything I need to know about who you really are underneath the nice guy act. Her words hit like physical blows because they contained just enough truth to be devastating. I had violated her privacy by going through her phone. I had researched Alexander without her permission. I had tried to interfere with her relationship based on information she'd never consented to me gathering. In trying to save Maya from Alexander, I'd become someone I didn't recognize, someone who justified boundary violations with good intentions. When I come back from this weekend, Maya continued, I expect you to be ready to discuss how we're going to end this relationship like adults. I'll need time to find my own place, obviously, but I think we both know this has run its course. You're not the person I thought you were, and I'm not the person you need me to be. The irony was staggering. Maya was breaking up with me for trying to protect her from a dangerous man, while simultaneously planning to put herself in that man's power. She'd rather end our relationship than consider the possibility that her upgrade might actually be a downgrade into genuine danger. Her need to believe in Alexander's perfection was stronger than any evidence I could present, or any love I could offer. Friday afternoon, Maya loaded her weekend bag into the rideshare car that would take her to the airport. I stood at the window watching her laugh and chat with the driver, looking radiant and excited in a way she never looked with me anymore. She was wearing a new dress that hugged her curves perfectly, her hair styled in waves that caught the sunlight, her whole being focused on the adventure ahead. As the car pulled away from the curb, Maya turned to look up at our apartment window. For just a moment, our eyes met across the distance, and I saw something flicker in her expression. Uncertainty, maybe, or second thoughts, but then she smiled and waved, and the moment passed. The car disappeared around the corner, carrying Maya toward what she believed was her happy ending, and what I feared would be something much darker. The weekend stretched ahead of me like an eternity of waiting and worry. I'd done everything I could to warn Maya about Alexander, and she'd rejected every piece of evidence, every appeal to caution, every expression of concern. Now all I could do was sit in our empty apartment, surrounded by the silence of her absence, and pray that I was wrong about everything I'd discovered. But deep in my gut, I knew I wasn't wrong. Maya was walking into a trap, blinded by her desire for someone better than me, someone who could give her the life she thought she deserved. The same ambition that had made her dismiss me as a temporary placeholder had made her vulnerable to a predator who specialized in exploiting women's dreams and desires. Saturday morning crawled by with agonizing slowness. I tried to distract myself with household chores, with work emails, with mindless television, but nothing could quiet the growing dread in my chest. By afternoon, I was pacing the apartment like a caged animal, checking my phone obsessively for messages that never came. Maya had made it clear she didn't want contact from me, but the silence felt ominous rather than respectful. The call came at 6:17 p.m. on Saturday evening. Unknown number, area code from Morrison County, where Alexander's lake house was located. My hands were shaking as I answered, dreading what I might hear, but desperate for any information about Maya's safety. "David, it's Maya. Can you come get me? I'm at the police station. Something happened." Her voice was small and broken in a way I'd never heard before. All her confidence, her certainty about Alexander and her future, had been stripped away by whatever had occurred at that lake house. I was already grabbing my keys as I assured her I was on my way, that everything would be okay, that she was safe now. The 2-hour drive to Morrison County felt like the longest journey of my life. I found Maya in a victim services room at the police station, wrapped in a blanket that couldn't hide her torn clothing and bruised skin. The confident, dismissive woman who'd left my apartment had been replaced by someone fragile and traumatized, someone who flinched when I moved too quickly or spoke too loudly. When she saw me, she broke down completely, sobbing in a way that made my chest ache despite everything she'd put me through. Detective Carol Winters explained that Maya had locked herself in Alexander's bathroom and called 911 when he became violent after she tried to leave Saturday afternoon. Alexander had been arrested for assault, attempted rape, and unlawful imprisonment. The charges would likely be enhanced when prosecutors connected his case to the ongoing medical board investigation and the other women's testimonies. "Your girlfriend is very lucky," Detective Winters told me quietly, while Maya spoke with a victim's advocate. "Most women don't get the chance to call for help in situations like this. The fact that she was able to lock herself in that bathroom and reach her phone probably saved her life. Dr. Reeves has a history of escalating violence when women try to reject him." The drive home was mostly silent. Maya curled against the passenger door like she was trying to make herself invisible. Finally, as we reached the city limits, she spoke in a voice barely audible over the engine noise. "You tried to warn me. You showed me all that evidence, and I chose not to believe it because I wanted Alexander to be perfect. I wanted him to be everything you weren't." Her admission hung in the air between us, heavy with implications neither of us was ready to fully process. Maya's need to find someone better than me had led her directly into the hands of a predator. Her belief that I wasn't enough had made her vulnerable to someone who saw her as nothing more than his next victim. The same relationship she'd dismissed as temporary had saved her life when she needed help escaping her upgrade. Back at the apartment, Maya sat on the couch where she'd packed her weekend bag with such excitement just days before, now looking small and broken in ways that went beyond physical injury. The woman who'd told me I was just a placeholder until something better came along had discovered that sometimes better is actually much worse. Her entire worldview had been shattered by the reality of what upgrading had actually cost her. Over the following weeks, Maya and I had long conversations about what had happened and what we both needed to heal. She was dealing with trauma that would require professional help and probably years of therapy. I was processing my own complicated feelings about loving someone who'd used me while simultaneously feeling grateful that I'd been there when she needed rescue from her own choices. Maya started seeing a therapist who specialized in sexual assault recovery, while I began my own counseling to understand why I'd stayed in a relationship with someone who'd been so clear about not valuing me. We both needed to examine the patterns that had brought us to this point, her belief that she deserved better than what she had, and my acceptance of being treated as less than I was worth. The legal case against Alexander moved forward with Maya's testimony adding to the mountain of evidence against him. 2 more women came forward after his arrest, bringing the total number of accusers to 6. The medical board suspended his license pending criminal proceedings, and the hospital finally terminated his employment after months of protecting him. 3 months after the lake house incident, Maya made the decision to move across the country to live near her family while she continued her recovery. We both understood that our relationship couldn't survive what had happened, not because of blame or resentment, but because we'd both learned things about ourselves that required individual growth before either of us could be healthy partners to anyone. On her last night in the apartment, Maya sat me down for one final conversation. Her eyes were clearer than they'd been in months, her voice steady with hard-earned wisdom. "I need you to know that you were never the problem, David. I was so busy looking for someone better that I couldn't see the good man who was right in front of me. But more than that, I need you to know that you saved my life." Her words carried weight because they came from someone who'd experienced both sides of the equation, being with someone who genuinely cared about her well-being, and being with someone who saw her as an object to be used. The contrast had taught Maya lessons about love and value that no amount of explanation could have conveyed. 6 months later, I received a text from Maya that would be our last communication. She'd started graduate school in social work, volunteering with an organization that helped women escape abusive relationships, and was slowly rebuilding her life with the support of family and professional help. Her message was simple, but profound. "Thank you for showing me what real love looks like, even when I couldn't see it. Someone will be lucky to have you choose them first." For the first time since that horrible Sunday morning when Maya had casually informed me I was just a placeholder, I smiled reading her words. She'd finally understood the difference between being with someone who saw her as a temporary convenience and being with someone who valued her enough to risk everything to keep her safe. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them go to find that understanding on their own terms.